Continuing our descent to ascend out of hell, when we open the door in the Great Room, we find ourselves in a hallway that looks like a mix between a Gothic chapel and an esophagus. I'll start off by saying this is neither new nor groundbreaking, and it feels disharmonious with where we just came from. You see, even though we just passed the Great Room, we really just passed it. We came from down in the tunnels where we spent maybe 15 minutes. And the effect is as jarring to get up from the tunnels as when we first got down into the tunnels. And it very much ruins the horror effect for me. Mad Mind did try to make up for it by turning off the lights and tell you you're not alone, and it could have worked if it wasn't just an illusion. Moving on to the design, Gothic architecture is inherently organic, so it makes sense to use it for a blueprint if you want to create a meat structure. It's grandiose and can be just as repulsive as it's beautiful, although right now it's only repulsive. It's an impious parody of Christian tradition with demons in place of saints and carnality as its literal building block. I like it, I think it looks awesome. There's a similarity between the hall and an open esophagus, but it honestly looks too much like a Gothic building for me to feel like I'm being swallowed. The hard pallets of the floor, the archways, the statues, it all does feel like a hallway, and the meat makes it feel like being swallowed about as much as walking into a church feels like spelunking. It's a nice design, but I don't really find it scary, disturbing, or groundbreaking. Descending Hell's Gullet, we find a labyrinth, and this is where things really start going wrong for me. See, in the trailer, the labyrinth was a massive affair that looked like it was built from sheets of black sandstone from above. I know we clearly see the bones in the trailer, but I believe they were piled against the stone walls, not that they actually were the walls. Black rock walls work for me because sandstone can look organic, but still different enough to feel like a new area, and the unorganic right angles made sense. I imagined walking up in darkness with only a red-tinted bone torch to light my way, up to a plateau and find this thing looming in the shadows, and then spend potentially hours trying to find my way through it whilst Agony's horror skittered all around the shadows around me. This thing is too bright and small, and the entirely organic walls having right angles don't work for me at all. While the thing is still technically huge with a shadow area off to the left, at no point did I find any reason or desire to go explore outside of the tiny clearly lit area with huge markers that helped you know exactly where you were. All of that said, just because this thing wasn't what I expected, doesn't mean it doesn't have some good points. After jumping to my death, I possess a new body, and we find ourselves in this antechamber, where we can get a good look around from a more involved perspective. We stand in ankle-high swill of blood and other fluids, surrounded by brown-tinted repellent walls of bones. It's a fetid mix of dark reds, browns, grey, and purple that makes me think of rot. And remembering what I'm standing in, I feel a shiver go up my spine. Not really, but this is enjoyably unenjoyable. Everything looks disgusting and vile. It's not as threatening as the outside, but as all the colors blend together, I feel nauseous and miserable, and all I want is to get out of there. Outside this antechamber, the theme of the environment putrefying and blending together in huge vague forms with suggestions of organs continues. It achieves the same effect as darkness, and the nauseating colors makes the vague outlines even more disturbing. I love this feeling right between nausea and awe, and not to leave any angle feeling empty. Above and below there are things either towering over us or adorning the walls and the floor. It is a very cool place to be, but it only works when the things feel like valid parts of the environment. Huge Onoscele statues works. Naked wailing women works. A sudden stone altar looks like a glitch in the game. And speaking of Onoscele, what do we have here? Yay! It's her! Time for me to hide! Time for me to hide! Now that what we all know is the real star of the game has arrived, I want to talk a little bit about the biggest controversy surrounding the game. The way it displays women either as disgusting animalistic monsters or sociopathic sex kittens. Now, I'm not gonna get into a discussion about it, as I believe this game is as much of a statement as V for Vendetta is a call to arms. However, just the fact that people have that reaction, that is proof enough of just how brilliant the character design going on here really is. I'm a big fan of body horror in all its forms, including our powerlessness in front of our urges and the revulsion of our own bodies turning against us. We think we're no longer animals, and we can deny an urge if we have to. But just the fact that we have an urge we have to deny means some parts of us want something we shouldn't want. And the thought of that urge overpowering our rational mind is terrifying. Sexuality is one of those urges, and it can be empowering and beautiful. But in Agony, it's hostile and revolting, with the intent to unsettle and terrify you. And it does. I believe the designs of the monsters in this hell will stand for a very long time. I only wish the death animations were as disturbing as the monsters. Before we end this video, I will talk about the Onoskelis. Like I said earlier, when I first heard of Agony, I believed the Onoskelis was the Red Goddess, because it was in all of the trailers and promo art, and just look around hell at all the statues and murals, the thing is everywhere. I think it's the developers' way of creating mystery and intrigue surrounding the Red Goddess, by not showing her until the release date was approaching, and possibly sell the game by shoving the most striking design in our faces. But in the game world, it's just confusing. I don't understand why the Red Goddess would erect statues to what is essentially her guard dogs, and it's never explained. The creature itself very much embodies the revolting nature of sexuality I mentioned earlier. Its well-rounded feminine form is inviting, but everything else about it reminds of either an open wound or a rabid animal. The red clammy surface looks like it has no skin. The chattering skull reminds of an insect, a ram, and an inflamed yoni, not to mention the bestial goat's hooves. There isn't a part of it you would want to touch if you could help it, and you know if it finds you, you will never live down the fate it has in store for you. Well, you would if the death mechanic wasn't entirely stupid. And with that, I close off this video, and I hope you join me again next time when I take a further look on the artistry of Agony.